Okay, I think we can get started. Everybody, thank you so much for attending this evening. I am very, very excited for this opportunity to introduce some amazing students and an organization, an institution, an initiative on campus that is creating something that is truly unique and new in the Notre Dame community, and heightening the awareness and the need for innovation in a lot of different sectors. I'm thrilled about this evening. I hope that you are as well. I do want to give a quick note to everybody that's online. Hopefully you'll see the panelists and myself, and you all will be muted throughout the session. Quick note as well that we are recording the session this evening. So thank you everybody for coming. Innovation is just so key to us. It is something that stands out in the city of New York. There are so many individuals who come here to start new companies, to join large companies, to break off and really change the game. And this is an opportunity to see what it's like for the Notre Dame community and the next generation of individuals. And you'll get an opportunity to meet them here in just a moment. This session mirrors so well so many of the events that we do naturally here in New York and across the country in the Notre Dame Alumni Association connected networks. The Hesburgh Lecture, the UND celebration, where we have professors and speakers from campus, which, knock on wood, we hope will come back and flourish in 2021 because we've missed it so much. But this is in that same ethos, in that same vein. And it is such an opportunity for us, in addition to hear not just from those professors and speakers, but from students. And this is something that resonates with the foundational mission of the Notre Dame Club of New York. We are created, we are here, we are driven, and we give of our time and our talents for scholarship and the opportunity to give of students who are in need the opportunity to experience what it means to be Notre Dame. So here's my shameless plug. If you are a member, welcome. If you are not a member, please do consider. It is an opportunity for you to contribute to our mission, but also to gain an incredible value and become part of a wonderful community of Notre Dame alumni, family, and friends here in the city. A couple of lays of the land. So virtual has become quintessential with our day-to-day lives. We communicate with our friends, we communicate with our colleagues, we communicate professionally, we communicate personally. Tonight will be a virtual experience. So you'll have an opportunity to hear from representatives of the IDEA Center here in just a moment. And you have the opportunity to hear from 3 wonderful students who will be able to share their incredible stories of entrepreneurship and innovation. I do want to note that on the bottom of your screen, you should see a Q&A button. Please do make use of that. One of the moderators who's not speaking will be able to see your questions. And then once the speaking session of this evening is over, we'll be able to engage with me, with Patti, with Brian, with Olivia, Sterling, and Adozi, and each one of us will be able to address questions or connect or network and really kind of, again, generate that idea of community and innovation tonight. The last thing I do want to note is it's wonderful that you're here. But if you know somebody that wasn't, or if you want to kind of connect again and learn a little bit more about what we talked about this evening, you'll be able to view the recorded video on the Notre Dame New York YouTube channel, as well as the IDEA Center website. So without further ado, I want to introduce somebody who is on the screen right now, wonderful individual, Brian Ritchie, PhD, MBA. He's the Vice President and Kathy and John Martin Associate Provost for Innovation at the University of Notre Dame. In this role, Ritchie leads the university's IDEA Center initiative and coordinates the university's innovation, commercialization, and entrepreneurship programs. Ritchie's wide range of business and academic experience spans entrepreneurial startups, large corporate management, consulting, technology transfer, and academic teaching and leadership. An expert in venture startup, value creation, and organizational execution, he has helped many enterprises, large and small, create and execute on their highest strategic initiatives. Dr. Ritchie has effectively provided leadership and community building to connect work among academics, business, government leaders, and student community entrepreneurs. Wow. Dr. Ritchie, Brian, welcome. That's right. Yeah, I wonder. It's wonderful to have you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I really appreciate this opportunity. Marco, that was a very kind introduction. And really, I got to find out who wrote all of that. I got to go back and see if some of that's actually true or not. Uh, anyway, this is really fun to be with you all tonight. And it's fun to talk a little bit about the Idea Center. I hope that when I'm finished and Patty's finished and these students are finished, that you will feel like the University of Notre Dame is doing something really unique and really interesting, that will change the nature of higher ed in the 21st century. And we think that we can do that. We think that it fits with the mission of the university to really do good in the world. And we think it's going to be an important part of that. So let me just take you back 4 years and just tell you a little bit of a story about how this all came to be and why it's important that it came to be. If you were at Notre Dame over 10, let's say 15 years ago, and you haven't been back to the university since then, and you were to come back today, you would find a very different university. The university of 15 years ago was primarily a teaching university. It was not a tier 1 research university, and it was pretty much disconnected from the South Bend Elkhart region. I think the legacy of Tom Burrish will be that he is the one who started this transformation of Notre Dame to becoming a tier 1 research university. And I don't know if you've noticed, but over that period of time, they've gone from virtually nothing in research expenditures to almost 230 million. And that is a tier 1 research university, and without a medical school, puts us in the top decile of research expenditures. So the university has made a tremendous transformation. At the same time, if you've been and seen all of the building that's gone on campus and the connection and how it's moved into Eddy Street and into South Bend and connected to those communities, you'll recognize that the university's mission has transformed from just educating people and sending them back out into the world to being one of changing the local ecosystem as well. And there's a number of reasons why that's important. One is that if we're going to attract high quality researchers to this ecosystem, they usually come with partners or spouses or others in their family that need good, high paying jobs. There has to be something for them to do. And living in Chicago is less and less of an option for most of these families. On the other part of this is that you've got to create a virtuous cycle where if you've got very smart people doing the research, they need ways for that research to get out and be impactful. And the problem is that at most universities, the research that's discovered, there's been some estimates that up to 80% of that sit inside the university and never see the light of day. So it's one thing to discover a technology that might cure cancer. It's another thing to actually get that technology out and into the hands of the people that can use it. That's a very different process. And that's where the Idea Center comes in. The university said, if we're going to have a tier 1 research university, we've got to be able to have impact. We need to be able to commercialize. So let's create an operation that can effectively take those technologies from discovery all the way through to commercialization in the marketplace. And they wisely said, since we're doing this tabula rasa, let's take a look at what the best practices are, and let's try to do something that is the very best way we possibly can. And it turns out that at many universities, the practices and the aspects of entrepreneurship and innovation are fragmented, and they're separated, they're disparate, they're all over. And the university said, Notre Dame said, let's bring those all together under one roof and let's benefit from the synergies and the economies of scale of putting them in one place. So in 2017, they created the Idea Center. We created a team. We were fortunate to bring in some people from some other universities and combine those with some very smart people that were already at Notre Dame to create a very capable commercialization team. And then we brought 4 main elements under the roof in commercialization. So the commercialization, which is all the startups, all the licensing, all the de-risking. Then we also brought in education. So we're one of the few places that does a master's program in entrepreneurship and a minor in entrepreneurship available to anybody on campus. You don't have to be a business student. You can be any major and get into the entrepreneurship master's or minor program. We also said, it's going to be really important that we connect to the community, that we actually can do something about changing the ecosystem locally. Now, it's true that Notre Dame's research and education influence extends into the entire world. But in this case, if we can't transform this South Bend Elkhart region, as I mentioned, we're probably going to fail in the long run. So the IDEA Center is also a bridge to this local community and how we develop and create a new ecosystem of innovation and entrepreneurship. And the final part of this that's really important is actually we created a fund, the actual funding part of this, where we are the general partner of a venture capital fund inside the university. This fund is a for-profit fund. It's an ROI fund. It has investors in it that are all limited partners. And we run it like a venture fund. We're the only university I know of that has that inside the university structure, which is really important because it allows us to be incredibly nimble and flexible in the way that we fund the ventures that we start. So you might ask, how well has that gone? Well, over the last 3.5 years, we've started 111 companies. We've created jobs that are on average twice as high paying as the average job in the South Bend Elkhart region. We have over 150 students that are engaged with us in some form or another, most of them working as analysts and interns, even if they're students. So our experiential learning component is incredibly high. And I hope that as you listen to Sterling and Olivia and Adozi, you get a feeling for that as they have gone through and started their ventures. And then we've also worked with alums and the community and faculty and others in starting and helping them start companies and to move this forward. We have very high goals for this organization. We want to be known as best in class. We want to be the very best in the world at commercialization. When people think about innovation and entrepreneurship, we want them to think about Notre Dame. By the way, I don't know if you know this, but the number one reason the students come to Notre Dame right now is to go to medical school, which I think is interesting. We're known for that. We're good at it. But what I'd also like to be known for is entrepreneurship and innovation. I'd like students to say, I want to go to Notre Dame because that's the place where I can start my venture. That's the place where I can start my company or be engaged in that. Now, does it end with just startups? Of course not. I mean, teaching innovation and entrepreneurship matters for people, even if they work for big companies. Big companies also need to innovate. Organizations need to innovate. Nonprofits need to innovate. And we're very interested in extending our processes to incorporate all of those different groups. So we're extremely excited about what we've started at the University of Notre Dame. As you know, Notre Dame doesn't do anything halfway. If we're going to play football, we're going to be the best. If we're going to do commercialization, we're going to be the best. And that's the way that we're headed. And we have a tremendous team. And as you listen to these students, you're going to see that we have tremendous students, so capable. I'm just so impressed with who they are and what they're accomplishing. So I'm happy to answer questions later about the IDEA Center if you'd like to know more. Our doors are always open if you'd like to visit. We are always looking for people who want to be engaged with us, and there's so many ways. If you would like to be, an advisor or a board member or an investor or a mentor, or you want to work on your own company, there's so many ways that you can get engaged. And one of the people in our organization who is just amazingly capable and does such a tremendous job is Patti Reinhardt, who is with us tonight. She's our director of student engagement, and she works in our student entrepreneurship team. Patti started at the University of Notre Dame in the business school, and we're very fortunate to have her come over. She runs our McCloskey business plan competition as well, which is now transitioned into a new venture formation competition. And just a tremendous asset, adds tremendous value to our organization. And so with that, I will turn you over to Patti and into your very capable hands and let you take it from here, Patti.
Thank you so much, Brian. I appreciate that. Like Brian said, I'm the director of student engagement. So my role is to work with all the students, grad or undergrad, connecting them to the resources at the IDEA Center. Not only those students who consider themselves to be the entrepreneur, but also those students who are interested in using their skills, their expertise, working with startups, which gives them real world experience in many different industries, helping them to create very robust resumes. Today, I'm going to share opportunities for alumni who would love to get engaged with us, what we're doing here at the IDEA Center. In my role, like Brian said, I also run the McCloskey New Venture Competition. It is now in its 21st year. This competition is open for alumni, all students, grad and undergrad, local community teams, and we have a prize pool of close to $400,000. But the largest benefit to participants is our network, both judges and mentors. We are in constant need to increase both our judging and our mentor pool, and I would say that 80% of this pool are our alumni. Within McCloskey, we're looking for judges to assist in evaluating teams at both rounds 1 and 2. This judging happens twice a year, usually in November and in February. Round 1 is a 2-page overview with a video pitch of their proposed venture that is actually in the hands of judges right now as we speak. Round 2 is a traditional transitional business plan. People who want to select in to be judges, they will self-select your areas of expertise, and then you're assigned teams that are in that industry. Though we do provide a scoring component, the most valuable aspect to our participants is your feedback as an alumni. Mentoring for McCloskey occurs primarily during November through March. Again, with you being able to select your areas of expertise and being provided information regarding the proposed venture and the team prior to the introduction. No students or teams will reach out to a proposed mentor directly. This will be facilitated through us at the IDEA Center. Outside of McCloskey, we have a student pre-accelerator program and then the IDEA Center's commercialization engine, both which we need to match teams with mentors and advisors. These types of relationships and outreach occur on an as-needed basis. Additionally, like I said, alumni can participate in McCloskey with their own ideas. And the benefit to that, besides the prize pool, of course, is that we help facilitate matching with our Notre Dame students to help provide assistance as you're moving through the competition. And then lastly, we're running a program called Alumni Labs. The concept behind this is taking alumni with unique networks and market insight who then disclose compelling business opportunities. The IDEA Center will then recruit quality operators and technologists to manage the project. The commercialization engine then leverages its resources to validate, develop, and invest in the startup. This process is slated to launch a startup in under 100 days. I pulled a couple testimonials from some alumni that have gone through this. Corey Baggett, class of 2007, said, "This shows real potential and promise by generating sales right out of the gate. This will be great for alumni who have ideas and who want to build a brand around them." And then Jim O'Hara, class of 1983, said that there is a level of engagement and excitement and passion from the students that will create dynamic early stage companies with real opportunity. The alumni cohort for this fall is currently full, but they will be looking at new deals for the spring. So if you or alumni that you know is a serial entrepreneur that has way too many ideas that you can't handle on your own, bring them to us and let us help match you with co-founders to help move that idea even further. If you're interested in learning about any of the opportunities that I talked to you about right here, Marco has my information. Please feel free to reach out to me or ask questions at the end of this. So now it is my pleasure to start introducing you to a few of our student teams. They're going to share a little bit about themselves, their venture, and then how they engage with the IDEA Center. Each team will present for 5 minutes, and after the last presentation, we'll open it up for questions, which Marco will facilitate. Please remember to use the Q&A function to ask your questions. The first team that is up is going to be Sterling with Orange Tree Theory.
Thank you, Patti. So my name is Sterling, and I would like to introduce you to my company, Orange Tree Alternatives. Here it is. So I'm a junior finance major with a minor in computing and digital technologies. I hope to pursue a career at the intersection of technology and finance, and that's mainly why I created Orange Tree. We are the first ever social alternative investing platform focusing on disrupting the fee-heavy broker-dealer channels for private commercial real estate investing. Orange Tree allows accredited investors to invest in high-performing private commercial real estate opportunities at a significantly lower fee structure than investing through an RIA or private wealth manager. Not only can you invest at a lower fee structure, you can also do this with significantly less capital because not everyone can write checks in excess of $100,000. Our mission is to democratize the commercial real estate industry by lowering the barriers to investing by giving our users access to a previously inaccessible investment class. Not only do we wish to decrease the barriers to investing, we hope to offer high quality, diverse investment funds that actually yield consistent returns. There are many people that can benefit from investing in commercial real estate due to its low correlation with the stock market and the ability to obtain their entire real estate allocation by investing into funds that have target holds of 5 to 10 years. However, private equity sponsors seldom tailor their investment marketing efforts towards lower earning accredited investors because they often opt to market to institutions and high net worth individuals who can write checks in excess of $1 million. There's actually a significant market gap between investors who wish to add real estate to their portfolio and who private equity sponsors market their investments to. And this is where I'm trying to make a change. Orange Tree will act as a fund of funds by crowdfunding investment from a large number of low commitment investors, effectively giving access to and lowering the minimum commitment on these investments. Our users will invest in our single purpose investment vehicle, which will then be fully invested through a single entity into the sponsor's funds. This will effectively allow sponsors to access retail investors without any of the inefficiencies associated with managing many small-time investors. So Orange Tree is different from other crowdfunding commercial real estate investing platforms because we understand that investing in alternatives is complex and fraught with poor investments. Orange Tree removes this complexity with our 4-step investment process. First, our users browse through our high-quality investment opportunities that we source and vet with our experienced mentors that have years of industry experience. Using our intuitive UI, our users can look for deals that match their investment objectives, read offering memorandums, and even background check the sponsors so that you know who you're trusting your money with. Once you have found an investment that interests you, you can discuss in private and semi-private communities of coworkers, friends, and fellow alumni to engage in community due diligence so that you know exactly the risk factors that affect your investment. In fact, we want to be so transparent about the investment process that we even allow you to discuss investments that are not on our platform because we understand real estate does not meet all of your diversification needs. Once you have found the perfect investment that fits your investment profile, you can invest as little as $10,000 into any of our deals. Easily read and sign subscription agreements and deploy capital from your bank using an ACH transfer. And once you've done all of that, you can sit back and relax while you collect passive income on this historically high-yielding investment class. We will notify you of any tax forms or other notifications that require your attention. Orange Tree is that simple, and I hope to grow this idea in the future with the help of the IDEA Center. I have currently been working with the IDEA Center for the past 5 or so weeks to further validate my solution and de-risk my business. With acceptance into the pre-accelerator, which is a 6-week program, I have been given guidance on how to make sure that I am building a solution that actually solves our customers' pain points. I'm excited to enter into the commercialization engine, which will then give me access to more funding and resources to build our product with hopes of launching in early 2021. So I invite you to join us in the mission to democratize the commercial real estate industry. And I would love to continue this dialogue outside of tonight's meeting by contacting me using the information shown on this slide. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sterling. That was great. And like Shirley said, he's only been working with the IDEA Center for 5 weeks. So he's really come a long way since he started with us. So very impressive. Next up is Liv. Liv, if you want to go ahead and share your screen.
Sure. Thank you, Patty. Hi, everyone. My name is Liv Anderson, and I'm currently a senior design major at the University of Notre Dame. I'm so grateful for you guys being here tonight. I know my co-founder for what I'm going to talk about tonight is also an alumni, so I know the importance of staying active after you graduate. So what I'm working on and what I was fortunate enough to work on in the summer with the Race to Revenue program is Juke. And a little bit about Juke, our mission is to improve the live music experience for both the artist and the audience. So if you're at a bar or a restaurant with live music, you would have the option to request a song, tip the artist virtually using Apple Pay or Google Pay, and you do this all from the comfort of your own seat, never having to get up. And this all started with Griffin Eaton, as I mentioned, the former alumni. And I don't know if Patty's aware of this, but we owe it all to her. That's how I got connected with Griffin, was an email from Patti. And so he had this idea in winter of this year. And he brought me on the team as the designer. And then Ryan Krieger, who also is a part of the IDEA Center, he came on our team as a programmer, coming with plenty of programming experience, now having an app that has over 1 million downloads on the App Store. And then Franny Chandler's our newest add to the team, and she heads outreach. Over the summer too, I was fortunate enough to have private mentorship from Dan Sullivan. And he has a lot of experience starting companies, but also he's worked in the area of live music specifically. So having that connection to a mentor so specific to what we were working on was wonderful. And so basically, if you look at this team, it's IDEA Center written all over it. It wouldn't exist without the IDEA Center. The problem that Juke is facing is this breach in connection between the musician and their audience. So these two have very compatible needs. The audience wants to hear songs they know, they want to feel like they had some sort of say in the evening, and the musician wants to provide this for them. They want to satisfy their audience, gain their traction, gain a following, and they don't want to play a default performance night after night. And so with all this considered, why are requests so rare? The reason is boiled down to 3 things: certainty, cache, and confidence. First, how does the listener know if the band will know how to play the song that they want to request? Secondly, do they have cash on them? Oftentimes not. And even if they do they know the proper amount, or do they know where to leave it on the stage? And then of course, confidence. It kind of takes some sort of gusto to get up there, risk interrupting their flow, and it might be awkward to go and approach them. And so this is why requests are so rare. And so what we introduce as a solution to this problem is Juke. And that would be a lightweight technology which would allow communication between the listener and the musician. And so you would arrive to this page where you find the gig that you're at that night. This would either be brought to you by a link that the band broadcasts. You could look up the venue or the band's name. And then of course, Juke provides merch for the bands where they can put the QR code on the table. This could be either a custom-made coaster or a table tent. And then once you get there, you get to just scroll through at your leisure of the catalog of songs that the musician has uploaded. And so you click one with full certainty that the band will know how to play it. And then you send a tip using Apple Pay, Google Pay, or your credit card, not having to worry about cash. And you can send it in finally with complete certainty that it will be played by the end of the night. So a bit about our traction, kind of the story of our team. It was in February of 2020, actually, that Patti sent the email, and that's when Griffin and I got together. And so right away, Griffin wanted to, before building out his team more, he wanted to just validate the idea, the concept alone. And so testing that hypothesis that if those 3 C's, certainty, cache, and confidence, were tended to, there would be an increase in requests. And we saw tremendous results from this. He went to Iron Hand one night and he was there to the side, able to take credit card tips and not having to interrupt the band. And then of course he printed a catalog of songs for each table. So all of those C's were tended to. So let's take a closer look at this. This is like my favorite part. This is a picture from that day. And these are 2 couples who were so excited to hear their request being played that they got up and started dancing in the aisles of the restaurant. And if you've been to Iron Hand in the afternoon on a Thursday, this is not a normal sight. So this really validated that idea that this can help facilitate those connections that live music can bring, which is so exciting. And so that's when Griffin went ahead and got this grant for $4,000, and we invited Ryan onto the team to start programming, start bringing this idea to life. Around the same time, coronavirus started, which actually gave us a nice opportunity to hunker down and focus on getting to know our users. So we conducted interviews, and then we fleshed out our web presence and our social media presence. And now once we're all together again, we've been able to accelerate our MVP process. So we now have a V1. And moving forward, we are going to do user testing in a format of 10 bands, 30 events in 60 days. So we hope to kind of focus on these 10 bands so that they get to know the juke function real intimately, and they can give us feedback based on 3 events each. Once this happens, we want to secure 100 bands, and then until we feel comfortable enough with our marketing tactics to scale out to 1,000 and beyond. So that's a little bit about Juke, and none of this, again, would be possible without the IDEA Center. So thank you so much. And if you'd like to contact me, here's my information.
Thank you so much, Liv. I appreciate the shout out for that. Liv is specifically talking about teams who actually need help, need student help, can sign up and say, I'm looking for a student who has expertise in XYZ areas. We also then on the back end have over 400, 500 students who have raised their hand and said, hey, I would love to be a part of something that you're doing at the IDEA Center. I don't care what shape, way, form that is. I just want to be a part of something and use my skills and expertise to help somebody else. And we make those matches. So that is a result of that. Liv, if you can stop share on your screen, we'll make sure everybody gets information at the end too. Next up, we're going to, hopefully Adozi is still with us. I just saw him pop off. Adozi is with Next Step, and his presentation, he has been with us probably the longest out of all the students. And so I'm excited to hear about his progress, and I'll turn it over to Adozi.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right, perfect. Hi, everyone. My name's Adozi, and I'm the founder of Next Step. So first, I want to go over who I am. Like I said, my name's Adozi. I'm from Las Vegas, Nevada. I'm currently majoring in pre-med, pursuing a minor in real estate as well, and I'm a junior at the University of Notre Dame. So the first thing I wanted to talk about was why I chose Notre Dame. So when I was in high school, I wasn't really able to go on any physical college tours. Both of my parents were working, and being the oldest of 5, having 4 siblings, it was very difficult to find the time to plan a trip like this. Luckily, I was fortunate enough to attend a small private school that hosted what they called a Midwest trip, where we would tour a select few universities in the Midwest with 50 of my other peers in my grade. It was a very small school. So during this trip, we toured schools like Northwestern, UChicago, Loyola, Kalamazoo, Notre Dame, and a few more that I don't really remember. But I thought it was funny because out of all the schools we toured, Notre Dame was the only one that really caught my eye, simply because, you know, the quad looked nice. People were playing Frisbee on the quad, and I like to describe it as just, you know, good vibes in general. So I applied, I got accepted, and then I ultimately committed. So when I arrived at ND, I realized that I actually didn't know anything about the school at all. You know, past acceptance rates, average test scores, GPA, and, you know, all the basic statistics. I didn't really have an understanding of the Notre Dame culture at all, or the culture fit. Of course, I'd consider myself one of the lucky ones, because the more I learned while I was here, I loved it more and more. But I realized that there had to be, you know, many unlucky ones out there that hated their school upon actually attending, which explains, you know, the high transfer rates. So this problem sort of turned into what would be the idea for Next Step. I wanted to create a way for high school students to gain better insights on a school in a way that's affordable, convenient, effective, and personalized. Something more than just numbers and stats that don't really represent a school's culture. So I figured, where better to get insights from than a student who actually goes there. So after doing research and finding out that 27% of students who chose the wrong school ended up showing signs of depression, 35% of college students transfer at least once within their college career, and 35% drop out within their first year, I realized that there was a problem, and we decided to validate even further. So I didn't really know where to start, so I ended up applying to the IDEA Center. I got assigned a coach and ended up pitching for around $510 that we would use to validate the problem through surveys and construct mock-ups and make a logo. After validating the problem and pinpointing that the main market pains were that current college exploration methods were expensive, inconvenient, non-informative, and misleading, and lacking personalization, I approached my team, and we decided to start creating. We made a landing page at first to see how many signups we get before launch and before actually creating, and we ended up getting around 50 signups from prospective students and mentors that would be willing to do these chats, given, you know, appropriate compensation that we experimented with. So that's how we ended up creating Next Step. Next Step is essentially a service that enhances the college search process by facilitating chats between high school students and real college students that are matched by major, personality, interests, and more. So these are the mock-ups that we ended up creating with some of the $510 we received from the IDEA Center. And this is what the site looks like now after implementing changes based on user interface and user experience feedback from our current users. In 5 months, we've been able to onboard over 1,450 mentors, over 550 prospective students, and complete over 180 Next Step or successful Next Step meetings. And I define successful as 5 stars. So these are only the 5-star Next Step meetings we have. And tomorrow, actually, I have a meeting with the superintendent for South Bend Community School District to see if we can implement this service for all their students as sort of a SaaS service. So they'd be subscribed to Next Step. And another thing we give them is metrics. So let's say a high school student that they're counseling looks up Notre Dame or something like that, they'd be able to go into the admin database that we created for them and see which one of their students has been looking at what schools they've been meeting with, which allows for, a lot more personalization when counselors are talking to students, especially in a bigger setting or a public school. So our mission is essentially to enhance the college search process in a way that diminishes pre-existing barriers to discovery, learning about, and getting into one's potential dream school for all students. And we plan to do that. As we grow and approach more districts with different strategies and things of the sort. I think a major part of why I'm presenting today is because I'm always trying to learn and connect in ways that bring us closer to Next Step's goals. So if any of you listening have any connections, input, advice, or feedback, please feel free to contact me here. Thank you.
Thank you, Adozi. You can leave that screen up for just a few seconds here. Marco, if you, the students are all done presenting, so you can ask for questions at this time.
Absolutely. Well, first and foremost, Sterling, Liv, Adozi, that is wonderful. As I told you earlier when we were kind of getting ready for this evening, I, as part of my job, work on presentations and pitches all day long, and these are way better than anything that I bring to the table. So super, super impressed. It's been so wonderful to get to know you and meet you, and really kind of hear a little bit more about your stories. Again, everyone that's on the line, please feel free to use the Q&A function. It is below, right down here, or go ahead and feel free to ping me in the chat, whatever you're comfortable with. But otherwise, I had a couple of questions for our panelists here, and I guess I'll just start with Sterling. I mean, you were the first, so I'll reach out to you. Commercial real estate, like how old are you? At 19, 20? Like, tell me the how, tell me the why, and tell us in this sort of evolution of identifying this avenue for your venture, what is it like to figure out an entrepreneurial opportunity when you're so young, right? And how did the IDEA Center help you to do that?
Okay, so that's a lot to unpack as a question. So I'll start at the beginning. The how.
Yes, it is.
It's like, I actually first started working at a commercial real estate investment company for 2 years now in subsequent summers. And so what I noticed is that there were a lot of investors that came back to the sponsor and said, hey, I'm 3 years into my 10-year hold, 3 years into my 7-year target hold, and I need liquidity. And so I figured, okay, well, make an exchange, secondary market sort of style. I soon, met with lawyers, kind of fleshed out the idea and realized that that is legally almost impossible. So as I started to, play around with this idea of, like, how am I going to solve this problem of like getting our users liquidity? I realized that, well, if I were to issue the shares as my own, LLC, or then, LPs can do owner-to-owner transfers, and that would sort of give them that liquidity option. The only issue was I had to create a primary market first. And so by creating a primary market, I recognized that, well, there's still a lot of problems here. And so eventually, you know, I do plan on solving the secondary market liquidity problem. But again, you know, being an entrepreneur, I have to be lean and I have to make sure I have to be real. And so being real with myself, I recognize that there's a bigger problem, which is, you know, getting people access to these commercial real estate investments first off. And so that's why we've seen, you know, with recent legislation being passed, we've seen the emergence of crowd-funded commercial real estate platforms. I don't think any of them do it particularly well. That's why I'm attempting to, you know, fix the problem in this industry. But, you know, I meandered my way to sort of this MVP sort of idea that I've been doing, you know, right now. In regards to, you know, how I'm implementing this, you know, entrepreneurially speaking, you know, I have a team of, you know, myself, and then we reached out to the CEO and CFO of the investment company that I worked at to help mentor me, mainly because I really did need a lot of understanding and learning about this very, very complex industry that I still have a grasp about 5 to 10% of. And so that's sort of my like story and journey through like, you know, coming to where I am today.
That's great. I think it's one of those things where sometimes it just sort of hits you, and then you start to really kind of investigate and understand and kind of unravel new things about an avenue that you really didn't know, and you realize that you have a passion for it. I think that there's a lot to learn, and I think that there is something to be said about the fact that learning and that idea of innovation that you're trying to get at continues throughout your life. And I think that that's really great that you're able to kind of start that so early. And I'm sure that there are plenty of opportunities to go ahead and connect with individuals here in the city of New York, specifically because our personal and commercial real estate market is well, right now it's maybe not quite as hot as it used to be, but it is something that is definitive of our community here in New York. Let me move to Liv, because we're talking about understanding and innovating and really kind of getting to know really kind of what your opportunities are. Liv, I'm a marketer. That's I've been doing it for a while. I don't have the creativity that you have, clearly. I don't have the entrepreneurial spirit or innovation. Otherwise, I would have started my own thing. Maybe, who knows? At some point, I will too. But I know what it's like to want to understand your audience. That's one of the things that I work on with my partners internally and with my clients. It's something that is essential. Otherwise, really kind of what you're trying to accomplish doesn't mesh. Can you talk a little bit more about when you're looking at these identified 3 C's, right? And you said that you have next steps for Juke. You said it kind of started with, what does the consumer really want? What is that experience? And then also, what is the musician who's also your consumer? What do they want? Can you talk to us a little bit about what you've understood about understanding your audience and your marketplace? And then maybe a little bit about what makes Juke a little bit different, because there are options out there that revolve around events and music.
Sure. Yeah. Despite the array of instruments in my background, I'm not a musician. These are just, this one's because my best friend plays it.
They're props. Are they props back there?
They're props. They're my Juke setup props. But yeah, I think the user side, the audience side, I think that was rooted, understanding the user was rooted mostly in personal experience for Griffin. That's what kind of got him to want to pursue this idea in the first place. That was a frustration commonly where he would be at a venue with live music and he'd want so badly to make a request because he thinks it would improve the atmosphere of the venue altogether. That dialogue between musician and audience. And so I've also experienced that too, but we wanted to make sure that it wasn't just a coincidental commonality there. And so that's when those 50 listener interviews are mostly casual. So that was with musicians, they were more set, and it was a meeting and we were having an interview and a conversation. With the listener side, it was a lot of casual conversation. So we would just bring it up with people and gradually get validated in that. because that is a much more broad side of our user. With the musicians though, we had a little bit more pointed questions, open-ended, and without us prompting them too far, we got the same validation from each one in terms of desiring that knowledge, that certainty that they were satisfying their audience, and how unsatisfying it felt to finish up a gig and start packing up and not being sure if anyone liked the music you were playing. And so I think that it was a pretty intuitive problem, but that validation was still necessary, especially considering, like I said, I'm not a musician. The second part of your question was, why is Duke special? So I do have a competition slide, but it might not be, I can just chat about them. Some other things in the space are a similar mission, but they're on parallel tracks in terms of the function. So they all want to make sure that everyone is having a say in the music at an event. But there are some things in the space that are more streamed focused. So you've probably heard of touch tunes, and that's where you and your friends can go to something at the venue to choose a song that would be streamed. And then another one is kind of like a communal aux. So people at a party can request a song to this communal aux. And so these are all things that are that similar. People want to have a say, but it's not live music. And so that's why Juke is important and unique, because it hones in on that human connection that we're trying to foster.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, like your segues are they're you guys are great. No, that's super interesting. I remember taking an entrepreneur class when I was in business school, and it was the same thing. It's the idea of being able to create a personalized experience, right? Like, I want to, again, knock on wood, that 2021 will be a little bit different, but I want to feel like I am with hundreds of people around me, but the band is always only playing for me, right? Like that idea, I think it's great. I think that's such a novel and great way to do it, and being able to do it with a live experience. I think that just makes it so much better. I think there's applications there, not just in a small band setting, but at wedding venues, at a lot of different other opportunities there that are great for something like Juke. But the segue that I thought was really, really interesting, and I wanted to kind of ask Adozi specifically. You're doing something that is what I would call very emotive when it comes to your entrepreneurial experience, Adozi. Choosing a college it's tough. It's ups, it's downs, it's very, very difficult, it's personal. I remember the experience that I had applying to college. I applied to 9 different colleges. I went to visit a lot of them. My parents didn't go to school in the US, so I had no idea where I wanted to go. I really didn't have an affiliation to any. And I remember it was the 4th of December. I don't want to tell you the year because I'm really old now, but it was a blizzard, and I walked onto campus at Notre Dame, and I just fell in love with it. And I really didn't know anything else about it other than a lot of kids from my high school went there, and my guidance counselor told me to go. But talk to me about the importance of that sort of genuine connection that you need to create, right? How do you build that? And how does your initiative, how does Next Step help to kind of create that level of trust where somebody who is really kind of going back and forth and trying to figure themselves out do that? And how has ND, in your experience, been able to kind of influence that as well?
Yeah, for sure. So first thing I think I should start with is how sort of Next Step aims to sort of build trust between, first you and the college student, and why you think I should go there. So, I mean, when we were coming up with Next Step, the idea actually started off as, have someone fly out and then like tour, but we're just like, that doesn't make any sense. There's too many liabilities with staying with someone random in a dorm. But we figured that you don't really need to stay with that person, right, to understand their side of the story, which is why we sort of shifted it to a virtual. And then later, after thinking about it, we're like, in order to sort of talk to someone that's like me, we should implement some sort of algorithm that takes the main things you consider when choosing a college, right? First is the culture fit, which is the personality profile we have everybody take when they sign up. And then the major. So you can choose which major you're interested in. Then we have like interests, and then I guess sort of that rounds off to be goals. And we're completely innovating the algorithm every time and you implementing machine learning to sort of improve on that. But I think, and I've had to listen to some of these conversations that happen because of quality assurance. Like I ask, is this okay? Can I listen to this conversation? They're like, of course, you know. And it's really interesting to see what goes on, because what we do is we offer a question guide, because firstly, with our first few meetings, we saw that people were running out of questions. They didn't really know what to ask. And I think that's something that we also solved. So we gave a question guide before each meeting. And, you know, we have a list of maybe 75 to 100 questions on there that you can ask, categorized. And what I saw was people, you know, instead of just somebody, you know, one side talking to another, they engaged in more of a conversation. It was like, oh, that's cool. Then they'd segue off of that, like, oh, how's the food here? Blah, 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 blah. What's the average hours like for somebody pre-med? Have you started studying for MCAT? What's that like? Is it hard in this environment? Things like that. And, you know, here, like, I didn't understand how harsh the winters were going to be. But there was a meeting that happened the other day with Notre Dame, and they're like, oh, make sure you pack cold for, you know, the winters, because this is bad. And they even talked about the polar vortex that happened a few years ago, you know. So that sort of guidance and that sort of mentorship, I think is really interesting to see, and sort of bringing that to a virtual world, especially in light of COVID-19. I don't want to say it was sort of a blessing for our business, but it definitely is something that allows people to see more of the potential here. And we just think that sort of initiating those conversations and sort of building that mentorship allows for people to much better see the college culture or the culture fit at a certain university. And all it takes is 30 minutes to 1 hour of talking to someone, and then they could, you know, follow up with a different meeting and things like that. But yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I think the fact that you are almost experiencing it as you're creating this company, because I mean, you said it before, right? People transfer all the time. I have many friends. One of my best friends from college, who I was an RA with in Stanford, was a transfer student. He just didn't find a connection with his first university. He just didn't. Nothing to say negative about where he was, but it just didn't fit for him where he was in his life. And coming to ND did, which I'm great for, because Ryan's a wonderful friend of mine. But I can certainly understand how that looks. I have a couple more questions, but I want to ask real quick, real blitz questions here, and it's for all three of you, for you, Adozi, for you, Liv, and for you, Sterling. I think that when you come up to a creation experience, whatever it is, I lead ideation sessions all the time when it comes to content, when it comes to campaigns, whatever, you kind of need to realize what's missing. What do I need? What do you guys, would you say, if you had two things that you wish that you had, what were they right now? Liv, go first.
Do you mean features of our concept?
Anything in your concept, in your company, what is it? And you can't say funding.
Oh, okay.
Everybody wants money. Everybody wants money. What is that? What would you think that it would be?
I think one thing is maybe having another person on our team. I'm the youngest on my team, so maybe having another student perspective would be really helpful, especially when we're entering something that's a technology, just to see this would be the person who would be growing up using this thing. And then, the second thing, I think if we could accelerate our MVP creation, that would be wonderful. So we do have Ryan, he's working so hard on it. And so if he was able to have someone he could mentor or walk alongside him in doing our programming, that would be so valuable.
Mm-hmm. Sterling, what do you think? Two things.
So I would say that the first thing is, because I'm in such a complex and very, diverse industry, getting connected to the industry in a better way that will allow me to learn about sort of the nuances that occur from company to company. Many companies run things very differently, even based on asset class, things are run differently. Based on the fund that they're raising, things are run differently. And so, and not only that, there are many different ways to interact within the broker-dealer channels of investing. You have, there's placement agents, transfer agents, there's pink sheets, which are different ways that, can have a secondary market in different ways that you can essentially trade shares and things like that. And so because of that, there is a very complex industry. And so I would like to get connected to, placement agents. I would like to get connected to, different sort of companies that solve the problem that I'm trying to solve, but in a different way. So that I can sort of better understand, how that works, because just having the mentors that I have at my disposal are obviously very helpful, and they have years of industry experience that they're able to tell me about these things. But actually getting connected and having conversations with people that do that on a day-to-day basis is definitely going to be of tremendous value as we move forward. Secondarily, I would say that, well, we have our MVP, we do have traction in some capacity, but really getting an MVP out and actually getting that coded is really going to be the second big factor here. Because of the regulation, we obviously need one coded with good intuitive design, but also with legal compliance. And so I would say those two things, getting some vision in regards to legal compliance, getting that legal advice in some capacity, along with learning more about the opposite side of the industry, not specifically just in crowdfunding, but, more about the other industry would be of tremendous value to Orange Tree.
Definitely. And Edozie, what about you? What are those two things that you feel that are missing or that you need?
Yeah, for sure. So one, I'd say possibly mentorship in the higher education admission space as we sort of explore options on the data licensing of prospective data, and allowing higher education institutions to curate their marketing towards people that have shown meetings with their school or interested in the competition, things like that. And then secondly, I would say somebody who is well versed in B2B sales, especially when it comes to school districts or ed tech, because that's something that we're currently experiencing right now, and it would just sort of help to have a mentor in that space along the way, say oh, this is a strategy you should take if you want to close this deal or decrease the sales cycle, something like that. But yeah,
that's great. It's funny, you guys came at that question in a lot of different ways, but there was three things. There was insight and perspective, technical expertise and potentially headcount, and then networking and connections. And I think that's really kind of interesting and fascinating that you would all kind of arrive at those things, because you're young entrepreneurs thinking about those things very, very similarly, but very, very kind of focused and narrowed in onto what's important for your organization. That's one of the things that I would look at to my Notre Dame community, and I'm speaking to you, New York, to connect and help these individuals flourish and really kind of take the next step in their initiatives. And that makes me want to translate into my last quick question to Patti and to Brian. And we've heard that you are very, very clearly invested and experienced in this, but why did you guys do it? What is it that really drew you in about the IDEA Center that makes it new and different, and would make somebody who might not be familiar with it want to explore a little bit more?
I think that's an awesome question. I'm going to let Patti answer it first, and then I'll wrap it up.
Okay. All right.
I came to the IDEA Center because Brian hired me.
Very simple.
So,
next. Okay.
no, for me, actually working with the Entrepreneurship Center, which many of your alumni know was housed in the business school. So we were very siloed in the fact that, only business students thought it was for them, even though we tried to open it up and let other students know that they could be a part of it. Being housed in the business school was just such a setback for us, because we weren't able to reach students. We could say, hey, you could go and be a part of the business plan competition. That was really the only resources that we had. So having the ability to work at the IDEA Center, where all students know that this is where they can go to learn, create, ideate, and launch businesses, is just a tremendous satisfaction for me personally. And then these students' parents who are alumni that are coming back. It's the alumni who are like, hey, you need to check out the IDEA Center. I heard this. I wish that was there when I was there. And so just the knowledge that, this is a real need. We're going to do some great things as we keep, growing and expanding. And it's fun. It's a fun place to work. It's a fun place to watch these students grow. And I just absolutely love it.
That's wonderful. And Brian?
Yeah, so that's a fantastic question for me. I actually started doing commercialization at the University of Utah, and we had a very successful experience there where we created almost 250 companies, and we had 16 exits and 3 IPOs, and we took it to #1, and just tremendous experience. And when I left there, we'd get universities that would call a lot to say, hey, would you guys come do commercialization for us like you did at Utah? And inevitably we'd have the conversation and they'd be like, yeah, after they learned what it was going to take, they're like, no, we're not going to do it. It's too hard to do it right. And when Notre Dame called, I told them the same thing. I said, here's what it's going to take to do it well. And I thought that they would hang up and, like most other universities, say that's going to be too much work. But Tom Burrish, who was the provost at the time, called me back and said, we are committed 100% to doing this the right way. And I got excited because it was an opportunity to really do it the right way and have an impact for the people that could use it and not just check a box. And like most universities wanted to do. And I was convinced that not only could we do commercialization well, we could also do it in a way that helped people. You think about, if we can do this well in South Bend, why can't we do this well in, Topeka or Brownsville, Texas, or Mumbai, India? I mean, we should be able to take this anywhere, and it ought to be able to really, it ought to be something that can help people to build wealth, to build prosperity, to create opportunities, to build jobs. That's exciting. That's a way to make a mark in the world. And, I think that 10 years from now, maybe 5 years from now, we'll have a different meeting, and Sterling and Olivia and Adozi will come back, and probably all 3 of them will have succeeded in something really impressive. But I'm okay if all 3 of them have actually failed impressively, because what it will really have told me was that we went out and tried something. We tried to make a mark. We tried to do something cool. And that says a lot about who we are at Notre Dame. We're not always going to win every battle, but we're willing to go out there and do something that actually makes a difference. And I think that's cool.
That's great. Well, I certainly hope that you all succeed, though, still, just
yeah.
all else being equal.
My money's on him to succeed.
That's really wonderful. Absolutely. Well, we are at time. I do want to say on behalf of the Notre Dame Club of New York, our officers, and the rest of our members, thank you all so much. Thank you, Patti. Thank you, Sterling, for starting this conversation with me 2 months ago. Was it something like that when you first kind of reached out completely out of the blue? Thank you for doing that, and Liv and Adozi for sharing your talents and your interests and your inspiration with all of us. And thanks, Brian, for telling us a little bit more about the IDEA Center and coming to Notre Dame. I think this is certainly something that was missing when I was on campus. 2005, 2009, we didn't really have this when I was there. We didn't have a lot of things when I was there, to be perfectly honest, like Eddy Street, well, didn't exist. But it's certainly something that I think flourishes and is synonymous with the Notre Dame spirit. It's part of that. So thank you all so much. Thank you, everybody who's on the line. And what do you say? Maybe 6 months, maybe a year, maybe we come back and see how you guys have been doing. Would you, if you guys are up for that? All right, great. I'd love to be able to, perfect, thumbs up. I'd love to be able to do a part 2. Well, thanks everybody again, and have a wonderful night. Thanks so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.